Hello, everybody, and welcome to the WDW Fan Zone Show. I am Stuart Sternberg, and tonight I'm joined by John Maloney, Kurt, and Darlene Nagy, and we have a and Michelle Sternberg. No, you're never here, so
That's okay.
So we've got a very special guest with us tonight, Beci Mahnken, the founder and CEO of MEI and MEI-Travel. Hello, Beci. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. I'm in a tornado of all the best things ever because now is the best time to be a Disney fan ever. From all the new things and all the stuff that's coming up and all the things they're announcing and releasing. It's great to be here to talk about it all.
Yeah. I actually got to see the new Finding Nemo, so did Michelle, the new Finding Nemo show yesterday. Phenomenal. They not only hit a home run, they hit a grand slam with us. But that's just another one of the new things they've added to the parks. So you've gotten to Disneyland recently.
Disneyland, yes.
Yeah. How are things doing there?
It's crazy. It's full. The parks are packed, which is great to see people back again. Things are we're a little skewed when I was there, of course, because it was Star Wars Celebration, and there was tons of Disney fans and Star Wars fans that were just going from the convention center, running over to the parks at night. I don't know how they did it, staying up that late and then running around the parks and then going back to be on the show floor at Star Wars Celebration. But it's wonderful to be there and to be around the Main Street Electrical Parade is back. So we saw a lot of people who were loving that nostalgia, sitting to watch the parade. And many people, I watched families, were sharing it with their kids for the very first time. So there was a lot going on there. And you can't help but I'm lucky. I was able to go to Avengers Campus several times when it first released and first came out. And every time I go back, it's still amazing. It still puts my brain in awe to walk around there and see the character changes. And I was a little bummed that I missed Moon Knight coming out. He was out walking around for a little while, but by the time I got there, he had been moved off. And it was Scarlet Witch, I think, was there when we were there. So I love the way that in that land they mirror what's going on in Disney Plus, or they are moving with the times and the characters as it progresses. So it's not always the same, 5 Avengers that just happen to come out all the time, which I really do appreciate.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, John has a trip coming up.
Not to Disneyland.
No, to Disney World, though. Do you have any questions about your trip? We're probably going to be all over the place in this show.
This is definitely bouncing.
Well, when was the last time you were in Walt Disney World, Beci?
It was just a few weeks ago, but I'm coming back, which is great. When I was there previously, I didn't have a lot of chance to see much else, for the exception of Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. I was there for that press event. And it was amazing to have yet another great example of how they take that IP and turn it into a fun, hysterical, laughing, singing experience. And I don't think it's too much of a secret that I really love Guardians of the Galaxy over in Disneyland, because they took Tower of Terror and turned it into a party and a ride, which I adore, because you get on that kind of that ride that you think about with Tower of Terror. It was scary and it was dark and it was something that made you want to not go in, but you did anyway. This one, you want to go in, you want to get on board, you want to look at your friends and wonder what song we're going to get. And when it starts, everyone yells and makes noise and is ready for a party. So they did the same thing now at Epcot Center with Cosmic Rewind. And some of the things that I want to mention, because this, in fact, I still have to write about this. This is how busy I've been. I haven't even written up the visit that I had. But a few things about it that people may not realize is that, first of all, there's 6 songs. So there's if anyone's a collector out there, you need to go ride it until you get all 6. I only have 3 of the 6, so of course I have to go back. It's not scary. So for me, I'm starting to get to that point where my body really doesn't like to go on some of these coasters anymore. While my brain wants to go and have fun, my body says, probably not a good idea. This was a lot more fun than I anticipated. The electromagnetic start, which I don't like typically, where you're in that standing start and you go from 0 to 60 very quickly, and you feel like you have to do the pilot grunt to make it through those first few seconds. This one was not that. I was prepared for it. I was ready, and I was ready to kind of do that position, and it was so smooth on the takeoff, and you're just moving and in circles and around the story and things that are going on around you. I didn't have that feeling of that hit my body in the negative ways that some of the coasters can. But I did enjoy where people were thinking it was spinning. So we had a lot of people talking about, well, you get down there and you're going to spin, and people are like, I don't spin, dude. And I'm one of those. Don't even get me near a teacup. Just watching it will get me
Me
my
too.
stomach upside down. But this was not that at all. And the best way that I've been able to explain it to people is it's like being on the Haunted Mansion, where the Omnicar moves forward and then moves you to look at the things it wants you to look. So take a Haunted Mansion car and then soup it up to 60 miles an hour and makes it go fast. That's kind of the experience you're having. So there's no inversions, there's no big drops, there's nothing that should be scary. The only place that I felt a little queasy was in the helix. There is one really good helix that if you are sensitive to motion, that might get you. But 2 things you can do to get around that is, first of all, keep your head forward. Don't look around, don't look up, don't look down, just keep your head forward. And then for those of you who can, there are over-the-counter medications like Bonine that you can take about an hour before you get on board. I had no problem because I was kind of prepared for that and took my Bonine beforehand. But the helix is definitely one of the things that can get to you for sure. But it's smooth. It's so smooth. So I would just highly encourage anybody who's a little fearful of roller coasters. This is probably one of the best experiences that I've had because of the smoothness. The starting and the stopping is not jolting on your body. It's even more comfortable than, I would say, Space Mountain, which is one of the smoothest coasters out there. So you should do it. Just do it once. Make sure to take in all of the details around you, especially the mirror that you look at when you exit the coaster. So I enjoyed it. I loved it. I can't do it 2 or 3 times in a row. My brain and body do need a little bit of a break, but that's okay because Connections is like a 3-second walk over, so you can sit down, have a cup of coffee, go back and try it again.
Have you been on Crush's coaster in Disneyland Paris?
I have. It has been several years. It was just opening when I was there, if that tells you anything.
Okay.
So that
And
one's
does it feel like that at all? Do you remember, or it's a similar kind of thing where it does spin around from side to side, but I think it does more spinning from what you're saying.
This one, you mean Guardians does more spinning?
Well, I'm my recollection of Crush's coaster was that spins more or spins further around than what it sounds like you're saying Cosmic Rewind does.
From my recollection, I would say that's correct. But right now, I wouldn't trust my memory for that far back for anything. So hopefully I'll get to Paris soon where I'll be able to make more of a direct comparison for that. But it is probably a fair comparison.
It's a similar kind of ride vehicle and track, and it's certainly directing you toward what's going on.
Right. And the funny part was when I wrote it for the very first time, I had forgotten because I was so into the music and so into what was happening around me. I forgot there was a story. So when I got off the coaster, I'm like, wait a minute, weren't we supposed to save somebody from something? I totally kind of forgotten what we were supposed to do out there. So wrote it again and went, oh, now I remember we're supposed to do that, and we saved the galaxy. Yay, yes. But they've just did a really good job with it. And man, I wasn't paying a lot of attention as they were building that show building, because they were, they painted it blue. It was hard to see. Really didn't go to that part of the park because it was all walls. When you get up to close to that show building, you really see how big that is. It's amazing how much space that's taking up.
It is huge.
Yeah.
And they painted it light blue, I think, to kind of blend in with the sky, so you don't really, it doesn't stand out so much.
Yeah, it's a specific paint color that that Imagineering came up with, from what I understand, so that it could easily blend into the sky. Given if it's blue sky or if it's gray sky, it's kind of that scale color that blends in very nicely, no matter what's going on in the sky. So
we noticed that the other day at Epcot when we were looking out across the lagoon.
Yeah. It was amazing to me looking across and going, oh, that's a show building over there. And then but you just don't realize how big that sucker is until you get close.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, did you hear about what happened to Spider-Man in Disneyland?
Yes.
I was going to ask if you saw him crash.
I wasn't there when it happened personally, but I, of course, have seen it because it's all over the interwebs. And thankfully, that's why they don't use a real person, I guess, is probably your best comment on that. But it's inevitable that something is going to break down somewhere along the line, and it's built for that possibility, and somebody just got it on camera. It was the perfect timing, and it made for a good laugh.
It was the perfect everything about it, because they even made the comment about I need the airbags, and they're like, I'm sorry, we don't have airbags. This is crashing through the wall.
Yeah, you almost want to see a crash test dummy go through that and then go into the side. I mean, it had its moment.
Yeah, and I'm sure if they haven't put it back together yet, they will soon.
Yes.
Oh, it was working that afternoon.
Oh, it was. Okay.
They had that wall back up, so that wall had to be designed for collapsing like that in case something like that was going to happen.
Right. Absolutely. I'm sure in their testing along the way, there must have been times where it did go a little awry and had a moment of its own. So they've thought about that and built in the possibility.
Yeah, smart thinking on their part.
If you think how long it's been going for that particular show, and that's the first time that it's actually happened, not bad.
Yeah.
And no crash dummies were hurt in the
Yeah. So the new attractions that have come to Disneyland and Disney World, and let's exclude Guardians for the moment. What would your favorite be?
How can you exclude Guardians for the moment?
It's the newest one. So the next, all right. So let's say the next newest one.
I guess the shiny object is always going to be the favorite, right? I really do, and it is one of the newest ones. I love the technology. I get very drawn into when the technology changes and something that they can do that they never have done before, much like the coaster that's so smooth that you can't even believe that you're on a roller coaster going as fast as you are in the dark. And I think that's why one of the reasons I love web slingers so much, even though I did manage to hurt my shoulders doing it. That's a whole nother story. But it's that technology piece where anybody can ride, any size, any person, any level of knowledge of Spider-Man is going to enjoy that attraction, because you get on, you're actually playing a game. You're working with your family or the people in the car with you. I love that. It kind of goes back to where Walt created Disneyland, because he wanted a family to be able to do things together, and that kind of attraction pulls everybody together to enjoy the attraction. So I think that that's probably one of my very favorite things that I've seen recently between the two parks.
Now, do they still? I remember when you and Lou were there when they first opened. They had those special web slinger Do they still sell those?
Oh yeah.
How many pair do you own now?
I don't own any. As a matter of fact,
buy any? Okay.
He and I, neither of us bought them when we were there. We discussed doing it and then realized why.
You don't need them, in other words?
You really don't need them unless you're trying to get the high score. But even the high scoreboards show who's using enhancements and who's not.
Gotcha.
So you can, when you look up and you go, oh, okay, I was the 15th person for the day, it'll show who above you was using the enhancements and who wasn't. So I think that's just another gimmick to allow you to get into those higher numbers if you want. And of course, revenue management isn't having too much of a problem with people buying things at Disney. Go figure.
No comment.
Yeah.
So just getting away from the parks for a minute, would you say this is a great time for people who want to take a Disney cruise to book a Disney cruise?
It's such a loaded question.
Yes, it is. That was intentional, by the way.
Yeah, I can tell. Well, we're sitting on the edge of the Disney Wish, which is finally almost here. It is in the water. It's heading across the Atlantic towards us right now, which is extremely exciting. Most of us have been waiting for 10 years for a new ship. And what have the Imagineers done and what has technology done between the last ship and now? And Disney's kind of sprinkled little things at us saying, here's what this is going to be. Here's the Aquamouse. Here's the Avengers quantum dining experience. Here's these little things, but not giving us too much detail because that's Disney. They don't like to give us the detail until it's really ready to show off. So we're all excited and we're all clamoring for more details, which is exactly what they want. So there's some great opportunities here. First of all, yeah, it's the Wish. It's the shiny object. It's what everybody wants to go try because the latest and greatest, right? So the prices are going to be higher than you're going to see in comparison to some of the other ships and experiences. But that's an opportunity. So while everybody's like heading towards the Wish, you might find that the Dream going out of Miami now is a much more economical choice to go on a Disney cruise because they may have a little bit more difficult time filling that ship. So they're going to keep the rates lower to entice people to go. So if you just want to go on a Disney cruise, you don't care if it's the latest, greatest or not. This might be a great time to look at some of those other alternatives because the rates are going to be a little bit lower. And the Disney Wish and the rest of all the Disney cruises are going to, we don't know when it's going to release, but the next release is going to be for fall of 2023 through the end of 2023. The biggest, hugest number one tip I can tell anybody is to book the moment it releases. Yep. Even if you don't know if you're going to be able to go or not, just book something that's going to have a refundable deposit, hold that price point, and then change your mind later. But if you wait, can easily be $500 to $1,000 more per person if you wait too long past release.
Yeah. And by the way, for anybody listening out there, Darlene and I would like to encourage anybody who plans on going to Disney World to book a Disney cruise with Becky instead. So we want our parks a little unclear.
Bring it on. I mean, there's all kinds of cool stuff that are that's going on between everyone's excited about the Wish. Obviously, the ship going out of Miami is a big deal. And I think a lot that's flown under the radar a little bit, people not really realizing that ship is gone there. There's a lot of opportunity because they're not really pushing it marketing wise. So as long as the ship isn't filling, the rates stay low, and it's a great way to save and do a Disney cruise at the same time.
Yeah.
That was a fun cruise out of Miami on Lou's WW radio cruise in February.
See, that was so difficult too. And I've been trying to tell people that, I mean, it was a great cruise. I loved being with everybody, but we were still dealing with COVID protocol. And it's really hard to do the things we like to do when we're told because of protocol you can't do da 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 da. So we did a lot of improvising. We had a great time. But I can't wait till the next ones because I know that those protocols are lifting little by little, and hopefully we'll be back to pretty much normal by the December 5th cruise. So I'm really excited about that.
There's a number of us that are excited for that December cruise.
I can't wait. I love when everything is holidays. I love the very merry experience on board. We might have one or two things up our sleeve to kind of tie into that for the group cruise. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one.
Good.
Yeah. So right now, if you had to compare Walt Disney World to Disneyland in terms of fun factor as being one part and crowd levels being the other part, and factoring both in, where would you rather be on any given day?
Oh.
And I know
You're throwing the
Disneyland is
hard
your
ones
home
at me.
She's partial to Disneyland, I think.
I'm very partial to Disneyland because it is my home park. What I love most about Disneyland is you can walk anywhere. You can easily go to Downtown Disney, which it's still called Downtown Disney there. You can easily, if all of a sudden you're in Disneyland and it's just too crowded there, you can easily just walk across the way and go right into California Adventure. And usually one park is more crowded than the other on any given day. So you can customize your experience. If it's not quite fitting what you want, you can easily walk around rather than have to go all the way out, catch a bus, go to some other parks, see if it's okay there. So it has its pros and cons, clearly, because it's smaller. So you don't have a lot of the bells and whistles that you have at Disney World and not as much of a variety. And when you're talking about crowd levels, it changes. It really depends on the day of the week. Because Disneyland is such a locals park, you definitely have a lot more people there on the weekends than you do in midweek. It's hard to compare the two because you also have thousands, 55,000 hotel rooms right in that general area for Disney World, where you do have some smaller hotels that are around Disneyland, but you just don't have that influx of people that are all going to Disneyland, where in World it's like we're staying on property at Disney World because we're going to go to the parks,
right?
And you don't actually have that as much over at Land, so it's kind of an unfair comparison. I can easily give strategies to both. I think that there are unique experiences at Walt Disney World versus Land and vice versa. One of the things that sticks out in my brain right now, which I don't think we've actually talked since we did this, was Star Cruiser that is over there in Disney.
That's right, we haven't.
Yeah, and that's just again another really interesting move that they made. And I've been lucky enough I was on the maiden voyage, and truth be told, this was not a freebie. Disney did not hand us a free voyage. We paid for ourselves to go because we really wanted to experience it the way that anyone who paid that price would experience it, so that we could confidently say if we thought it was worth it and who would be the best fit. Because sometimes at the media events, you get a different perspective than you might if you just do it yourself. So did it on the maiden voyage. It was freaking amazing. I mean, I had a low bar of expectation, just because I was thinking, yeah, all right, this is going to be something for the Star Wars fan, and the Star Wars fan is the only one that's going to really pony up this kind of money to do this experience. But I found it very intriguing that Star Cruiser was like a dinner murder mystery theater, a video game, a high production show, an escape room, a resort stay, and a cruise experience all rolled into one in 2.5 days.
Wow.
And when you start looking at everything that's included in that experience over those 2.5 days, you start seeing where the money is being spent, and it's easy to justify the money. Because when you start pulling those things together individually, it's the value is there. It's absolutely there, especially if you're looking at Disney World right now, where a deluxe resort is racking at $800 or $900 a night. So there is, and people are paying it, and no one's complaining that you can now get a deluxe standard room for $700 or $800 a night, and that's fine. People are having no problem with that. It includes all the dining. It includes this show that goes on all around you that you can choose to be part of or choose not to be. But frankly, this is what I have been telling people. If you're an introvert and you don't want to inject yourself into this story, this probably isn't for you, because you're not going to get your money's worth out of it unless you are all in. You're like, I am Star Wars and I'm going to get it. I'm from the planet Earth and I want to know all about you people. If you get into it, you don't have to dress up. You don't have to, get into it so deeply that it's uncomfortable, but you can just kind of jump in, have conversations with people around you, and you are literally pulled into the story. And in such a way that you go to bed at 11 or midnight and you can't wait to get up because you can't wait to get downstairs to see what's going on that morning.
Wow.
It's that immersive. And immersive is so overused, but that's the only word that I can ever come up with. But it really, really is immersive. The food is so good. I thought it was going to be, typical standard food. It was so good. It was like eating at a signature restaurant. Great choices, great options.
Wow.
Well done on how it was presented. And I don't really believe that you need to be a huge Star Wars fan to really enjoy this. I think that if there was like dad is all into Star Wars and he's bringing his son into it, and mom and the daughter are just kind of like, Star Wars. The family unit doing these puzzles and taking on these missions together is worth its weight in gold, because of all the things you do together as a family.
I was going to ask that. Are you working together a lot, or it sounds like there's times when, I heard your review, and it sounds like they were all just splitting up everywhere else.
Well, 3 of us were together because we were answering, and you work with your data pad, which, by the way, is not your own phone. They take or they ask you not to use your phone. You use their data pad. So you're not distracted and pulled into the real world, which is really cool. But as you start getting missions and questions and text conversations from some of the characters that are on board, you start showing if you're resistance or if you're a bad guy.
Great.
So there might be times where and no one's asking each other what they're answering. We're just answering the text that we get. And, you would look over and somebody would be getting a text and you realize you're not getting a text and you're like, so who texted you? And so with our experience, there were 5 of us, and we quickly learned that Deanna was definitely not resistance. So there were times where Lou and Nick and I would all have a mission to go do, and we'd be like, oh my gosh, we've got to be at the bridge in 5 minutes, and the other 2 are like, I don't have that. So you start discovering that your family members may not be as resistance as you would think they would be. So I think the key there is, if you want to do everything together, just make sure you're answering the questions and doing the missions together. But it really is kind of fun to realize that you're going in 2 different directions too in some places. But for the main key things, they pull everybody together no matter what's going on.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Now you were on sorry, go ahead, John.
You're good. Go ahead, Kurt.
You were on that inaugural cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Did they have those magic lightsabers that just go out on their own, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, it was used. It's used one time. When I was there, it was only used one time, and it was during a battle that ensues on board. It's kind of above you in the atrium area, so you do see it being utilized in a battle.
I just wonder how they talk about how they made it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how the way it's being made and going out, they're actually able to battle each other with it and not have it go thunk and bend half like a tape.
It was very well choreographed. We can put it that way. It was very well choreographed.
But they were not for sale.
Oh no. No. I don't think we'll see these on sale for quite some time. It's definitely a prop that is used during a specific time.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask, was there ever a time where somebody that was one of the guests who was a super Star Wars fan, the highest level, if they ever distracted from your experience because they were, asking so many extra questions, or they were taking the attention of the characters on the ship?
That's a really fair question. And I will say that no, it didn't distract you. You're introduced to the characters that you know are going to matter on the first day when you arrive. But it's actually more fun when the others that aren't in costume that do get involved, because there was one that actually we almost thought that maybe she's a new character that we haven't been introduced to because she was so good, but she was just one of the crew, but she was, or one of the guests, but the crew was so good about making sure that it was obvious that you didn't fall into, oh my gosh, I need to now follow this person into the elevator. It didn't distract, it actually added for me.
Okay. So the cast members, the crew of the ship are good at dividing their attention, distributing it to everybody.
Oh yeah.
And not getting sucked into one person's questions because they have so many and they want to have, all of the attention, or without even realizing it, maybe.
Yeah, they're fantastic. There are some that will see someone that's just kind of sitting over by themselves, and they'll go over and sit with them and talk to them. They will pull them into the story. There was the one that I loved so much. There's one specific character that I met in the atrium. He just happened to be standing next to me, and I started a conversation. He asked my name. We talked a little bit, where I'm from, where he's from, why he's doing there. And then it was the next day, I was walking around the bridge area, and I had finished my quest. I was thinking, what do I do next? I'm not exactly sure. I don't have any missions. None of my friends around me. What do I do? And the elevator opened, and there he was. And he was in there with like 3 other people. And he goes, Becky, I need your help. Can you come with us really quick? And I was first thinking, rock on for remembering my name from yesterday, by the way. And sure, apparently I now have something to do, because I need to now follow you into the elevator to go help you with this quest. And pulled into the elevator, and 2 hours later, I think we were done with that mission. So I mean, there's so much that's going on, and you're running upstairs and downstairs, and you want to make sure it gets to that point where there's so much FOMO because you don't know what's happening in the engine room. Maybe I should go see what's happening there. Oh, but wait a minute, what's happening on the bridge? Well, I wonder what's happening in the cafeteria. And you are just like circling like mad, trying to figure out what's going on and what's happening in different places. So yeah, the biggest question about it is long-term viability. And this is going to be the thing that we need to kind of step back and watch, because much like, do not laugh at this comparison, but much like the Love Boat, when there's one boat, there's one ship, but there's different stories every single week of what's happening on that ship, the story can change. They can bring on new baddies, and they can bring on new heroes, and they can bring on new storylines that will keep it interesting and keep it moving.
Right. Why would you want to go back, anytime soon? If you've had that experience, you don't want to have the exact same experience.
Right.
Does it feel, not like they're following a script, but does it seem more like everything is being improvised on the spot?
It feels like you are in an improv theater. They are certainly going to hit their marks, because they need to do certain things to make this story make sense to its conclusion. But you never feel scripted. It never feels like the conversations are always natural. They are always going with whatever the conversation flow is with you when you have those conversations. I was really impressed with that. I bought in immediately when I was having conversations with these different characters. It felt very natural, like I was hanging on a cruise ship with a whole bunch of people, and we were just in the atrium area and meeting each other. It really did have that feeling. I am, because my husband was extremely jealous and didn't get to go on the first one.
That was my first question. Yeah.
We're actually going back. I'm going to do it at the end of July.
Oh, that's great.
And the story itself may not have changed. However, I'm going to answer the questions differently, just to see what else happens that I missed, because we found people were telling us about different missions and things that they saw that we never saw, that we never had any exposure to. So there's definitely a possibility of doing that same story twice if you want to play the other side.
Yeah. Such as availing yourselves of all the opportunities on Batuu.
Yeah.
Because those can lead to
other things. Exactly.
Yeah.
And at first I was that person that thought, why do I even want to go into Batuu? Because I've seen Batuu and I'm spending all this money and I'm only on this ship for so long. So wouldn't I want to just stay on the ship? So glad I didn't. So glad I didn't. Because when you get into Batuu, it changes the way you do Batuu. Because there are different missions and different things that you have to do in Batuu, and you're recognized because of the special pin that you get. So the cast members treat you differently as part of the story. So it's a whole different experience.
I want to see the video of you and your husband battling with lightsabers. You know you're going to go different paths. It's going to happen.
He's been telling me he's going to dress up, and I'm like, well, you need to tell me so that I can at least dress up or not. Honestly, I mean, you guys know Florida. I do have Jedi robes, but I'm not wearing them in July.
No, you don't want to wear them now either.
Not unless you're indoors.
No,
it's not happening for me.
It was very toasty today.
It was 104 here in Illinois today. I don't want to hear about it.
Right now, guys, this is really good in the Seattle area. It is 60 degrees.
They'll tell you the temperature was 93. I can tell you everything on all my cars was saying between 101 and 104 with all the heat coming up off the ground.
That's my nightmare. That's my personal nightmare.
So if the Star Wars resort shows long-term success, can you see a Marvel universe or something along that line popping up somewhere?
OMG. This scenario is a disruptor. These guys came up with this concept. It's not the first. There have been other ideas that have come up. First and foremost, there was supposed to be a Star Trek hotel at one time in Las Vegas, which never came to fruition, but it really was the Enterprise, and you stayed in quarters on the Enterprise. And this was several years ago that this was the thought process. This is the first one that actually has come up and unveiled itself. But if they do make it financially viable and the bean counters are happy with the overall long-term profitability of it, I could see a Marvel Academy. I could see across the street going to Hogwarts and spending time at Hogwarts to learn how to be a wizard. There are all kinds of pathways that many IPs can take with this. So if Disney has those deep pockets and they put this forward and it works, I could see others following it. I could see that type of thing happening on cruise ships where they just do, I mean, they're doing Star Wars Day at Sea and Marvel Day at Sea, but what if it was, taken over from the entire time from the moment you step on board?
Right.
I would love that.
Yeah. That immersion is amazing to me. I think that it has so much entertainment value where you're not passive. I think we're all kind of used to it, being in the theater or being witnessing entertainment in a passive way. but witnessing entertainment in an immersive way is a whole nother animal, and it has a different feel to it, and it's exciting.
Well, because you have a role in it. You
Yeah.
know, even in Rise of the Resistance, it's all around you, and you're part of the story, but you're not injecting yourself into the story.
Right. You're still passive. I mean, you're there, but you have no control because they're manipulating you to get you out.
Yeah, you've got a specific path to take, and it makes it a richer experience, but nothing like what you have at the Star Cruiser.
I mean, could you imagine going to the town that is WandaVision at one point? Can you imagine? I mean, there's all kinds of things where you just walk into the story. I mean, there's a reason why the Backstage studios, the Universal Studios Backstage tours are so popular, because you're actually going into those stories, which then Disney took it another step and did things like, not only Galaxy's Edge, but the earlier one that made me really go, oh my gosh, this is amazing, is
Pandora.
Pandora was a good one, but the one in Disneyland, and all of a sudden I'm blanking, Radiator Springs.
Radiator Springs.
Yeah, Radiator Springs. Yeah.
That was the first time that I walked into a land and went, I just walked into the movie. I literally walked into the movie where everything is exactly where it is in the movie. And when a little kid was holding his mom's hand as we're walking in there, and he says, I'm in, where is everybody? I just walked into the movie. And it's like, wow, a little kid recognizes the fact that he's on the movie set or in the town. They've definitely accomplished something. So that was, I believe, the very first very successful path of that, where the lands were so immersive. It wasn't just one attraction, it was an entire land. And then they've taken it into Pandora and into Galaxy's Edge from there. I think that we're going to see a lot more of that.
We sure hope so. So if you don't mind, Stuart, one big question that I have that we've talked about recently, and I forget if we've asked you this before and what your thoughts were, but with what's going on with Epic Universe at Universal, what are your thoughts on a possible 58 at Walt Disney World?
Wow. I'm excited about anything
given the crowd levels, and Disney wanting to make more revenue.
Clearly that's the goal, is to bring more people into the Disney bubble, right? If they enjoy Disney World, they're going to enjoy Disney Plus. If they enjoy Disney Plus, they're going to enjoy Disney Cruise. If they like that, they're going to go on an ABD. That's the game, is to keep them in your bubble, to bring people in the bubble and keep them there. Universal, I've been excited about what they have planned. I can't wait to see how that comes together, because, of course, Immersive Lands, who really did it right, was when they did Diagon Alley. Diagon Alley was the thing that made some Disney people go, ooh, we need to up our game on. And that's what's so beautiful about their rivalry, is that we all win because of it. The executives at one or the other is going to be much more likely to spend money and put more into the experience to outdo the other one, to pull more people into their bubble, from the other bubble to your bubble.
And unfortunately, Kurt raised prices.
Well, prices are going to go up because, of course, they have to fund these things too. So, and they have to make a profit. I mean, we have to be honest as Disney fans and realize this is a for-profit company. And while we don't like the fact that we have to pay more money to do things, they are for profit, and they have to show to the shareholders that they're making profit. That's what they're in the business of doing. So while it maddens us a little bit, or a lot, or light yourself on fire, because the internet likes to do that a lot. A great example is Star Cruiser. Again, when they announced the prices for that, the internet lit itself on fire. But now, well, even before it was even seen by another human being that wasn't a cast member, people were already trying to tear it down without ever seeing what it was. So you have that impression, then you go and you actually do it and you go, now I see why it costs so much, because they're paying people and they're paying for that experience. And you've got the same actors that need to be on for 10 hours a day because you can't change an actor in the middle of that set. It has to be 3 straight days, and these people need to be compensated. So, and there's money that goes into the R&D of developing the technology that we're now such in awe of. So we end up paying for that entertainment in the long run, and sometimes that means that the prices are going to go up. Again, we don't have to like it, but it's the reality of business.
Well, and you know what the alternative is? We would wind up with a Six Flags theme park.
Correct. Absolutely. Which isn't bad for its experience, but that's not what we expect, right?
That's right.
We're expecting better technology, better experiences, better immersion, better story. And once they deliver that on a plate, we go, what's next? We're never just going to say, oh, Galaxy's Edge, it's awesome, it's immersive, we loved it, and you're done, right? Nothing else. We're always thinking 2 steps ahead and going, D23 is coming in the end of, or in September. What are they going to announce? What's next? What's happening? Because we're looking forward to what the new technology is and what R&D does, all the things that the money that we pay goes to help present.
And they always manage to top themselves year in and year out, which is the amazing thing of it all.
Yeah. And just think about what they're doing. If you're talking about a 5th gate at Disney World, let's back up for a moment and look at what they're doing at Disneyland. That whole area that's back behind Paradise Pier, which will be Pixar Pier when they're done for the hotel, that entire huge parking lot is going to be another gate. Wow. And they are going to build the an overpass, like the overpass from downtown Disney that goes to the Disneyland Hotel. That's going to pretty much be covered. So there's going to be a whole nother area, and there's going to be a whole nother park all in that back area. So there's a lot coming for Disneyland. And I think that D23 is going to give us a lot more detail about that.
Yeah.
Well,
it sounds like it'll be exciting to hear what comes then.
Yeah.
Well, and we've been starving for that for the last 2 years. It is, we had to reset our expectations about what's coming next. Yeah. And now things are starting to build again.
Yeah.
We would love to have you on after D23 to discuss what they, release to everybody.
Oh, absolutely. I am looking forward to that parks, experiences, and resorts panel more than any other thing in that entire D23, because I have a feeling that, last time was a few years ago now, because it's been a few years, thank you, pandemic. Right. We had the excitement of learning about the Star Cruiser and more detail about that. We got to hear that more than one new ship was coming. They had all kinds of surprise and delights that made us go, oh my gosh, I can't wait for that. And now those are here. So they're going to give us something else, tease us something else for us to wait for, so that next time we have another D23, we would have, had these experiences and ready for what's next.
And maybe Chris Hemsworth will show up too.
I'd be okay with that. Love and Thunder is coming.
How much from the last D23 that they talked about was going to happen at Epcot in the main area? How much of that has changed?
A bunch of it did change, and that was due to pandemic. Everything on the line there is pandemic. Now, I want to give them kudos and a lot of props for the fact that they did announce and pre-announce and tease us with some of these things and told us what was coming, because even 10 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. Right. If you remember, even before Bay Lake Tower was built, they had the garden wing rooms on that other side, right? And they brought in a crane that was knocking down the buildings, and we were asking, what are they building there? What do you mean? No, the cranes that are knocking down the building. What cranes? It's like the cranes right there outside of the window. Well, we don't have any information about that.
Yep.
So that's how Disney used to be about everything. You could literally see the guy driving the train, the crane, and going, they just knocked down another building. Is there? And they would go, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I'm going to give them kudos for realizing that things like the internet exists finally and starting to tell us what they plan. I think they've discovered that it's okay to show a little bit of their cards and get us excited, because we will wait for 2 or 3 years until it comes out, and we're going to be even more excited when it does. There is danger to that, as we learned through the pandemic, because we're not going to see the Mary Poppins attraction yet. There's been a lot of speculation that might come back on the line. It could be that they change it up and do something completely different with it. So I know it was disappointing that we didn't see a lot of what we were hoping to see by now, but I think that maybe there'll be new ideas to come into play, or we'll eventually get to some of the plans that they initially had.
Any rumors as to when we might actually see, I don't know, Tron light cycles actually start?
You know,
we were there a couple of weeks ago looking for the test, and we saw
about
no
2 weeks after your next trip, Kurt.
Yeah, it's probably true. That's what they did with Ratatouille.
I can actually say today, when I drove through there, there was a little bit of practice going on.
For Tron light cycles?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they've been doing that for a while. They've been running them through.
Yeah, I did not see anything running through. It did look like they were finally laying concrete.
Yeah.
The building's looking great.
Slow. You know what? You want them to make it right, so let them take their time.
Yeah, let them take their time.
I
That's
think
one thing that Disney's always done, is take their time and make sure it's right.
Yeah, and it's not only the traction is right, but the timing is right.
Yeah.
So I think that they're very strategic about when they open things and release things. Sometimes it's in conjunction with other things that are going on, because clearly they've got to have a big to-do about anything they release, and sometimes it's better to wait until there's a second thing so they can do it all together. The anticipation for Light Cycle is high. It has been in testing. It could be that that's going to be the thing that they do by October. It could be earlier than that, although I haven't heard any rumblings about that. It could be that they're going to wait and do it in conjunction with something else. But because October is going to be the mark and the beginning of the celebration of the 100 years of the Disney company, I think that they're going to pull out a lot of stops with what they want to release and announce and open. So it could be that they wait till October for that one. I just honestly, I'm guessing, because I don't have any information.
I read that one too.
Yeah,
I know you will. And I'll be like, okay, that's enough for me.
That's one of the funnest rides, by the way. That was one of the best things. It's so short, though. It's one of those things that you get on and you ride and you're screaming and you're laughing and you're giggling and it's over. So I'm hoping that might be just a little bit longer here than it was in China.
Now, is there anything in one of the parks overseas that you would absolutely love for them to bring to California or Florida?
Pirates.
Yes.
Right out of the gate, Pirates. Their Haunted Mansion-ish thing is pretty good too in Shanghai, but I loved Pirates. It was, again, one of those attractions that is unexpected because the technology is so good, and all of a sudden you're going underwater and it really feels like you're going underwater, but you're not getting wet.
Wow.
I would love to see that. The other one that I've talked about over and over and over again, and everybody laughs at me because of all the great attractions that are there in Shanghai and Disney, Tokyo Disney Sea, and in Hong Kong. I loved their Avengers walkthrough. To this day, it was the best thing I have ever experienced. It was Halloween, and we were there at Halloween, but it wasn't Halloween themed. But it was literally a bunch of trailers that were thrown together. You could tell it was a temporary thing, which I keep thinking it was a test for something. But when you walked in, you were just touring Shield, basically. And then you were pulled into the story. It's like, oh my gosh, something's happened and we need you to help us. And they're going, run, run, run. Can you imagine in a Disney attraction being told to run? So I was with Lou. We looked at each other as like, apparently we're supposed to run now. So we run into this other area where Black Widow and Hawkeye are fighting some bad guys, and then they stop and they give us some instructions that we have to go do this. And you go into another room and it's pitch black. And all of a sudden it's the thing opens, the portal opens up, and out comes Doctor Strange, who and these guys are actors. These are not screens. They're real people standing in front of you. And he's telling you that you've got to go take this thing to another place. And so he opens up another portal and you run through that portal and all of a sudden you're in Asgard. I mean, you're going from place to place because these portals keep opening up and you go through the portal and you're in another spot.
That's so cool.
Oh, cool.
It was, and then you end up in one of the sanctoriums where you finally deliver what you're supposed to deliver. But there's several steps of going through and talking to Avengers and having them get you from here to there. It was a temporary attraction, but it was still the one that makes the most that made the most impact on me through all the Asian parks. And I really hope that was a test and they bring something like that permanently to one of the parks.
No, was there a small group with you, or is it literally you and Lou and that was it?
That one was just me and Lou. We arrived in Shanghai. It was before our China Adventures by Disney.
Right.
And he and I went in a couple of days early so we could acclimate. So we went to the park by ourselves one day before the rest of the group arrived and found that and went through it, just he and I. But it was really amazing because there was different versions. You could do the English version, which we did, thankfully. You could do the Mandarin version. You could do the Japanese version, and all these different languages that all the people spoke.
That's awesome.
It was really cool.
Wow. Is there anything that you would like to see them take from Disney World and bring overseas?
Well, you know what? I would love to. I'm going to go back to Star Cruiser. I think that the Asian market may or may not. They are so rabid Disney fans. They are so into it. I don't know how much they are into Star Wars, but an experience like that, I think, needs to be shared. I think that a lot of people would really dig having that kind of adventure. So I'd like to see something like that.
And they could adapt it to the culture.
Yeah, that's true. They very much could.
Well, isn't that something that you could really, I mean, there wouldn't even have to be a Disney park there.
Yeah.
Couldn't they just drop something like that in England and say, come on?
You could, but then you would miss the piece of Batu. You wouldn't have that.
This is true. That
you're landing somewhere. And I think that that's one thing that when you are on a small spaceship like that, it is kind of nice to get out of it.
Right.
So if you were going to spend 3 days, and remember when it first started being talked about, people were thinking, do I really want to stay in a hotel for 3 days, not go anywhere? Not even go to a park, not go out, not do anything outside of it. But yeah, that's the case. You really do want to. But I think that type of a disruptor, that immersive experience would be cool to have in different locations.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone's traveling to Walt Disney World, whether it's the first time or first time in a very long time, what are some of the things that you would tell them that you have to do now that maybe a couple of years ago you didn't have to do, besides the reservation system, which I think is probably the number one thing they have to do?
The number one thing they have to do is plan.
Yeah.
It is no longer an experience that you can just go there and wing it. At one time, it was an easy thing where you could just go the first week of December and know that you could walk on to anything in 5 minutes. And it was that type of experience. You can no longer do that. You can't just go to Disney World without having dining reservations and without knowing what park you want to go to and without really having a strategy to make sure that you go to that you get access to the attractions that you really want to go on. Right. As a matter of fact, we just did an email show with WDW Radio this week, and it's actually published this week. And one guy was saying, I haven't been here since 2004, and I want to show my girlfriend everything I love about Disney. And we're both going, oh, that's going to be interesting. If you guys survive the trip, you're going to be great in your marriage, because it's so complicated. It is not easy to go to Disney anymore. And which is good for people like me, because we can help people plan and help them with their pros and cons of all their decisions and help them just make these decisions. But you can't just walk it there. You can't just arrive and expect a full experience on property anymore without proper planning.
And that's had to have made it more challenging for the MEI-Travel planners.
Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah, everyone's trip is different from the next person's trip, and their wants and needs.
Yeah, and we love that part. So, it has been complicated. We have to explain Genie Plus, we have to explain Lightning Lanes, and we have to explain individual Lightning Lanes, which those should never have been named the same. They should have been two different things. And I think they know that. There are a lot of factors that go into helping people plan a vacation now it was never this complicated before, which again is job security in a lot of ways. However, they also just made it more difficult because not allowing us to help clients get Genie Plus before they arrive now complicates things, because then you got people that are sitting there trying to figure out Genie Plus on the day they actually get there and want to use it. That's difficult. So and it keeps changing, which it's good in this industry, because you're never bored. There's always something to learn, something to do, and something to share with others. But it is definitely complicated. You've got to know what you're doing now. You have to have a plan, especially if you have attractions on the list that your trip will be ruined if you don't get a chance to do them, which means you have to have a strategy.
Yeah. Very different from years past.
No, we used to just
so different.
Reservations and go.
Yeah.
We would do advanced dining also.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even that's complicated as well. So, we haven't seen the dining plan return yet. And I have a feeling, I don't know for sure, I haven't been told this officially, but I think part of it is due to the staffing issues, because they want to make sure that if you buy a dining plan, that they deliver on that dining plan.
You're going to get the value, or you're going to get the returns. I mean, you have to decide if it's a value, but it won't be a value to you if you can't get any of the restaurants you really want.
Exactly. So while I know that a lot of us are kind of chomping at the bit, because we would love to have that dining plan back, because that helps take away that planning need, because at least you're going to be able to utilize the services. But it's, again, just so much more complicated than it's ever been before. But if you have the pieces in place and you've got the plan, you know how to use lightning lanes, if you're okay to use the individual lightning lanes and pay for it, if you want rise resistance and you don't want to spend 4 hours in line, at least there are tools to do that, where before there wasn't. And that made a lot of families unhappy because they didn't even have a chance to experience it.
Yeah, that's very true. All right. Anybody else have any other questions for Becky while we've got her here?
What do you think about annual passes returning?
That's another one. I think again, this is just my gut. I have no official information on this whatsoever, but it has helped them to be able to do the reservations so they can plan accordingly for the number of people. They could limit the number of people. The annual pass problem is glowing in California because they have so many more annual pass holders out there that are so close to the park. But now, because of the reservation system, annual pass holders can't get reservations. So if you buy an annual pass and you can't get a reservation, how are you going to feel?
Yeah.
So I think that they're doing the right thing by not selling annual passes if they don't think they're going to be able to accommodate the number of people who would use them. They need to rethink this whole thing. They need to back away, because obviously during COVID, they had to improvise. They had to come up with strategies and ways to make sure to keep people safe, to make sure that they didn't overcrowd people. They could, they had to think on their feet and come out with these. I mean, think about all the things all the hoops they had to jump through to make that happen in a short amount of time. Kudos to them for coming up with something. Yeah. But clearly in the long run, it's not working the way they intended. So it would be in their best interest to not sell more APs yet, to back away from that, retool what they're doing so it's going to fit the current environment rather than a pandemic environment.
And we know that to right now, the reservation system, I think, is going to go at least until January 24.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they're kind of damned if they do and damned if they don't in a lot of ways, because if they go, all right, let's take away the reservation systems, but they got such a staffing issue that all of a sudden there aren't enough people to staff the park, then you're going to get a whole bunch of people who are really upset because they paid the money for the day and they couldn't get on for the rides because they were shut down because they didn't have people to staff them.
Or you might have unhappy employees that might be told, you go into Disney Hollywood Studios in the morning and by the afternoon they're in Epcot.
Yeah. So I know that it hasn't been the easiest thing for guests. Clearly, I'm one of them, and I have seen the difficulties, and we feel sorry for guests that are traveling there for their first trip or their first trip in 5 years, or and they're running into these situations. But you also have to kind of put the hat on of the operations people at Disney to try to look. I mean, let's look at this in all honesty. Disney does not want us to be unhappy and uncomfortable. We don't spend money when we're unhappy and uncomfortable, and their ultimate goal is to have us spend money. So they're not doing this to us to cause an issue. They've got issues in operations that they have to figure out a way to make everybody happy, including their guests, including themselves, and make it a smooth operation. And I just think that they're in this phase right now between pandemic and post-pandemic that they're trying to figure out the best way to make it through.
And you know, they got to wait to see. Okay, John.
I was just going to say they have to wait to see. You know, are things going to change? So when revenge travel, declines, or what happens with the impact of inflation or the possibility of recession, they have to see what the new I don't want to say the new normal is going to be, but what is the travel picture going to look like, and including their parks as this period morphs into something new.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. I was going to say they have to project 3, 4, 5 years out, and they can't do that right now.
You absolutely can't, because there's something around every corner. There is a pandemic, which now we know can actually happen. When we only read about it, back in 1901, there was a pandemic that killed a bunch of people, but we never understood what that really meant. We do now. And then gas prices go through the roof. And that's not because of our country. It's because of all the variables that are happening in the economy. There are air issues with not having enough pilots. There are strikes that are going to come up from different pilots because they don't have as much of an ease of work as they used to because of the pilot shortage. Then we have a recession that might be around the corner. Then who knows, there might be a stronger than normal hurricane season. All of the things that keep happening. Oh, let's say Ukraine is out there too. That impacts everybody's travel, even though it's half a world away. Everything changes and ebbs and flows with what happens to us in our lives. And it's hard to plan for that. I mean, we all know in our individual lives, anything can happen to anybody at any time. We try to plan for the rest of our lives, but next week something happens and your plan gets thrown off.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Fun times.
All right. Before we head out of here, I do want to mention, if you're planning a vacation, you can't go with anyone better than MEI-Travel. So whether it's Disney World, Disneyland, Disney Cruise, and Adventure by Disney, if there's something else that's out there that's not Disney, they do it all. And they're happy to do it all. No matter how easy or complicated it gets, they're there for you. They're simply the very best, and that's MEI-Travel. Becky, don't disconnect when we end this, because there's a question I wanted to ask you off the show, not on.
Okay, and let me just throw out a little piece of optimism for you to end this piece. Is that Adventures by Disney just announced their round the world by private jet trip? Talk about optimism. It's 24 days that cover. You go to every single Disney park across the world, and you traverse the entire globe. And I will promise you that a week into that thing it will be sold out. It will absolutely be sold out.
What is the average price for that?
The starting price is $109,000 per person.
109.
Yeah, I'm gonna go mortgage my house now.
I'm gonna buy
my kids can't go to college anymore.
I'm with you, Becky.
But obviously, somebody has the belief that there's people out there that will spend the money, because the one thing we love is our travel. We love dreaming dreams, and we love living dreams, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
That's right. And they've got great deals, great packages, great everything at MEI-Travel. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us, Becky. Great show. We're always happy to have you on.
I'm always happy to be here. So yes, after D23, Darlene, I'm happy to sit in the chair again and take the questions. I love it.
Fantastic. We'll be in touch.
Great.
All right, everybody, be safe. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Well, because Becky talked about optimism, and because we were talking about what's coming, and because I'm going to Disney World tomorrow, there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day. Don't let your dreams wait until tomorrow. See you next week.
Have a magical night. Stay safe.